It's the second to last video, because this was, of course, always going to be only a summer book club, and I'm going to be too busy in term time to continue it, and the other holidays are really too short to bother. So maybe we'll pick this up again next summer. I hope so, because I've really enjoyed it. Have you been reading the books? I've been reading the books. So this week was Neverwhere. How did everyone get on with that? The, what is it, third Neil Gaiman book that we've done? My tastes are slightly obvious by now. Never mind. Also, I used the book journal for the first time. That was fun, that was fun. So I got my little thing of notes. Isn't that cute? So I have, you know, a reference point. It's nice, it's nice. Neverwhere is, for me, quite difficult to get into at first because it starts out so mundane. Richard's life is pretty boring, to be honest. Once Dor comes into his life, really, then it gets a lot more interesting. And once he starts going into London below and starts finding all these new things, new people, then it gets interesting. Then it gets a lot more interesting, and I would absolutely love to know more about the baronies and the fiefdoms and all that sort of thing. The whole structure of London below and how everything works and all the different people and things like that. The whole concept of a London below, and as it says in there, other cities below other cities. There's a New York below, and a Bangkok, I think, was mentioned as well. Just the whole idea of a city between the cracks of another, where all the kind of odd people fall through, and where bubbles of time get trapped like bubbles in amber. It's brilliant, and it makes it really believable, I think, in a way. I think the way that Richard is pushed out of London above is pretty scary. Not so much the way that people ignore him. I found that less scary than the way that the world itself seemed to push him out. So the machine rejecting his card and not accepting his coins, and the way that he was dragged along by the tube train when he tried to get on it because no one noticed that he was in trouble there. The whole way that the reality itself kind of rejects his existence is very scary. Neverwhere sets itself up to be a bit like a stereotypical fantasy young adult thing, where, you know, you have the stereotypical ordinary person falls into extraordinary world and becomes someone important, kind of. But this turns it slightly on its head, because Richard isn't important for a long time. He only becomes important very slowly, in very small ways, and he only becomes someone really important, the warrior, at the very, very end. For most of the book, he's just dead weight, really. He's completely useless. He has no skills to offer, and all he does is make pointless, stupid observations about how the world around them cannot be existing, and everyone just turns to him and just goes, "Shut up, Richard. You don't even live here." The point where the alien aspect of London below is really driven home for me is where Anesthesia dies on the Knightsbridge, and it's at that point that, for me anyway, I kind of realised that London below is a cruel, cold place with its different set of rules and regulations, and no one will care. Even the Lord of the Rats, he sent her because she was expendable. He didn't care. No one cared. No one cared about Anesthesia apart from Richard. And even then, she had almost more of an impact on him after she died. You see before that there are horrible, twisted, evil things happening. Things that, you know, Mr. Krupp and Mr. Vandermeer do. But it's Anesthesia's death that rams the harshness of the world home for me, because she's an innocent. She's unimportant, and no one's going to even remember that she exists. I love the rats as well. I think there's a statistic like, you know, on average in London you're no more than, I don't know, 5 feet from a rat or something like that. I love rats. For me it was a toss-up between getting rats or getting a snake. The snake won, obviously, in the end, but I would like to have a rat or rats at some point in my life, because they're such intelligent animals. They're brilliant, and, fun fact, they can go without water for longer than a camel. That's pretty cool, right? I thought so. But yeah, it was also Anesthesia's death that makes you realise that this isn't Hogwarts. You know, Richard knows bugger all about London below, and he's basically a dead man walking. He is absolutely screwed. He's going to offend someone, and they're going to kill him because they can, and that's how the world works. His chances of survival were, at that point, very low. If he hadn't found Dor and gone along with them, and if she hadn't taken pity on him, inevitable. He would have died. For sure. He wouldn't have lasted a month. Probably not even a week.
Hello, puppy. Oh, you come to say hello.
I also really liked the way that Richard goes back to his life. It's a very adult decision. If the child was a protagonist, I expect the child would have stayed in the world, you know, without thinking about it really. But he makes the sensible decision and he goes back to his old life, and then kind of slowly comes to grips with the fact that it doesn't seem as exciting, it's not as real anymore. I mean, after you've been on the run from murderers, dealing with bills isn't really on the same level, is it? Tell me what you thought of Neverwhere, because I really enjoyed it. Yay! Woohoo! Our next book, our last book, is the only one that I've not actually read in this book club so far. Pride the Ice Mark by Stuart Hill, and I went into town looking for it today, couldn't find it, so I'll get it off Amazon or Aid Books or something. I'll put the cover here. Bing!
Yes.
And so yeah, that's going to be our last book. It's about a 13-year-old who unexpectedly becomes queen of her kingdom and has to rally forces and get allies to fight an empire that's trying to conquer her kingdom. And it sounds good. So, tell me what we thought of Neverwhere. See you in 2 weeks for the next book.